depths of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, there is a dark tale whispered among the few who dare to speak of it, the legend of the Hodag. This terrifying creature, a monstrous beast born from the flames of suffering, was no mere fantasy. It was a nightmare, given flesh, a living embodiment of pain, hatred, and vengeance. The Hodag was said to have risen from the ashes of cremated oxen, animals that had endured years of torment at the hands of their ruthless masters. These oxen, worked to the bone, broken by cruel hands, were condemned to a painful death. Yet their suffering did not end with their death. Instead, it ignited a terrifying force, a creature so horrific that it haunted the dark corners of the forest to this very day. The people of Rhinelander believed that the Hodag was not just an animal, but the vengeful spirit of every ox that had been abused, an incarnation of their endless torment. The creature's appearance was enough to make even the bravest of souls quiver in fear. Towering and grotesque, the Hodag resembled a massive carnivore, its enormous head crowned with cruel, sharp bull horns that gleamed in the moonlight. Its glowing eyes, fiery and malevolent, stared into the very soul of anyone who dared look into them. A row of thick, wickedly curved spines ran down its spine, each one sharper and more jagged than the last, like the spines of a dragon's back. Its body was a twisted blend of raw muscle and sinew, every movement a symphony of savage power and deadly grace. The air around the Hodag crackled with a palpable malice. The wind seemed to freeze in its wake, and the very earth trembled with every step it took. People who had ventured too deep into the forest spoke of an unsettling presence, the hairs on their necks standing on end as they felt the weight of the creature's gaze bearing down upon them. And then there were the sounds. The Hodag's howl, a deafening, blood-curdling cry, echoed through the trees, a sound so chilling that it would send even the most seasoned woodsman fleeing in terror. It was said to be the sound of an enraged beast, a creature born from a history of suffering, its anger everlasting, unrelenting. The beast was not just a predator, it was a force of nature, a creature that hunted for retribution, seeking out those who dared disturb its haunting territory. Local legends told of it stalking through the woods, its footsteps like thunder, its eyes burning through the trees like torches. Those few who managed to glimpse the Hodag spoke of its terrifying speed, its ability to move without a sound, its presence always just beyond the corner of their vision. The Hodag would leave no trace of its victims, except for the faint, lingering smell of charred flesh and a sense of dread that would haunt them long after they fled its lair. No one knew why it chose its targets, but it was said that the Hodag's rage was indiscriminate. Whether you were a hunter, a traveler, or a local, it made no difference. The beast was always watching, always waiting, always hungry for revenge. There were those, of course, who dismissed the tale of the Hodag as just another myth, an old ghostly story meant to frighten children or outsiders. But those who lived in Rhinelander knew better. They knew that the Hodag was no mere legend, no fabrication spun by fear. It was real. It was out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. Some said that even now, deep in the forest near Rhinelander, the Hodag prowls, its glowing eyes scanning the woods for anyone foolish enough to tread too close. And though many have tried to hunt it, to capture it, or to kill it, none have succeeded. The beast is too clever, too fast, and too angry to be caught. The Hodag is eternal, born from the ashes of the past. It will never forget its torment, and it will never stop hunting. For in the heart of Rhinelander, amidst the old trees and crumbling ruins, as the winds still blow. On the evening of September 20th, 1965, the quiet town of Felixstowe, England, became the site of a terrifying encounter with something otherworldly. It was a crisp night when residents witnessed an extraordinary phenomenon that defied explanation, something that would forever haunt the town's history. The air grew thick, and a strange, unnatural glow lit up the sky. What they saw that night was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. A fire demon, an immense fiery entity, descended from the dark sky. Its flames blazed with an intensity so fierce they cast a hellish red hue across the landscape, turning the streets into a fiery labyrinth. The creature moved with eerie fluidity, its form shifting and writhing as it hovered above the ground. Witnesses described it as a massive, burning figure, its eyes glowing with an infernal light, its presence suffocating and oppressive. Panic spread through the town as the demon floated above, casting a shadow over Felixstowe that seemed to drain all warmth from the air. The heat from its flames was unbearable, yet it did not scorch the earth beneath it. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the fire demon vanished, leaving the townspeople paralyzed with fear and confusion. To this day, no explanation has been found for the sighting. Some say it was a visit from beings beyond the stars. Others claim it was something much darker. But those who saw it never forgot the horror of that night. The night Felixstowe was touched by the flames of something far more terrifying than fire then. The Dover Demon is a chilling legend that has haunted the small town of Dover, Massachusetts, since the spring of 1977. Over the course of 2 terrifying nights, 3 separate witnesses claimed to encounter a creature so otherworldly, its image has burned itself into local lore forever. The first sighting occurred on April 21st, when 17-year-old William Bartlett was driving down a dark, deserted road. As his headlights pierced the night, they illuminated something that shouldn't exist. was grotesquely round, with glowing orange eyes that burned like smoldering embers. It had no nose, no mouth, just an empty, silent stare that seemed to bore into his very soul. The second encounter happened just hours later. John Baxter, walking home through a wooded path, was startled by a grotesque silhouette in the shadows. The figure moved with a jerking, unnatural gait, its limbs impossibly long and frail. It followed him, closing the distance without a sound, before vanishing into the dark forest. Baxter swore its glowing eyes never wavered from him. The final sighting came from Abby Brabham the next evening. She described a gangly, otherworldly creature crouched near a stream, its elongated fingers clutching at the earth, as if searching for something, its gaze locked on her. Those unblinking, fiery eyes, paralyzing her with an unnatural dread. No tracks, no evidence, no explanation was ever found. Skeptics called it a hoax, but those who saw it still tremble when they recall its stare. Some whisper the creature wasn't of this world, while others fear it still lurks in Dover's shadowy woods, watching, waiting. The Dover demon remains an enigma, a sinister reminder that the unknown might be closer than we think, and it's always watching from the dark.
In the mist-shrouded town of Cannon Beach, where the coastal fog blankets the landscape, locals share a chilling tale of the Bandage Man. They say he was once a logger, a man hardened by years of grueling labour, but fate twisted his life in a nightmarish direction when a brutal accident at the sawmill left him shredded, his body mangled by spinning blades, flesh torn and bones splintered. The legend tells of his agonising screams that echoed long after the sawdust settled, his body cloaked in blood-soaked bandages, clinging to life before death finally claimed him. Yet death did not bring him peace. No, it bound him to the land, cursed to wander the coastal roads and woods, an undying shadow of suffering and rage. Locals claim that the Bandage Man haunts the old logging roads, reeking of decay and vengeance, his fury on unsuspecting travellers who dare cross his path. On a cold, moonless night, two teenagers named Lisa and Mark drove up to a secluded lookout on the cliff, their laughter carrying through the still night. They parked, content with each other's company and the eerie quiet surrounding them. But as they leaned in close, the car suddenly shook, as if struck by an unseen force. Startled, Mark scanned the darkness, his pulse quickening. Nothing but fog and shadow met his gaze. Then came a stench, the foul, sickly odour of rotting flesh and mould. It seeped into the car like an omen. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Lisa spotted a movement. A figure lumbering toward them, wrapped head to toe in filthy, blood-streaked bandages, his form twitching with unnatural jerks. His eyes glowed faintly beneath the layers, glinting with a twisted fury as he dragged his broken body closer, closer. Mark slammed the car into reverse, his hands trembling on the wheel. The bandage man reached the vehicle, clawing at the doors with cracked, bloodied fingers, smearing the glass with sticky red streaks. His muffled grunts turned to frenzied snarls as he pounded, each strike heavier, filled with unspeakable malice. His bandages hung loose, revealing glimpses of torn flesh and exposed bone beneath. Mark and Lisa's screams filled the car as he threw the vehicle into drive, tyres squealing as they sped down the winding road. But the bandage man didn't relent. He clung to the bumper, his bandaged face pressed against the rear window, eyes locked with theirs, as if daring them to look away. His grip grew stronger, pulling himself up inch by inch, his bandages trailing behind like gruesome streamers. With a final, desperate turn, Mark swerved off the main road, nearly careening into the forest as the car skidded to a halt. They waited, breath held, but the bandage man had vanished, his rotting scent lingering like a ghostly reminder. They dared not speak as they drove back to town, only to realise later that the windows bore streaks of dried blood and faint, hand-shaped smears. The townsfolk say that if you're driving alone on foggy nights and catch a whiff of that deathly odour, it means the bandage man is near, and he won't stop until he claws his way into the car, claiming anyone unfortunate enough to cross his path, dragging them into his endless nightmare of pain and rage, bound forever by his bandages of blood.
The Dybbuk box is a cursed relic, a wine cabinet that carries with it an unspeakable terror. According to Jewish folklore, it is said to be inhabited by a Dybbuk, a malicious spirit that has escaped from the depths of the afterlife, seeking vengeance and possessing the living. The box itself is ordinary in appearance. The box was sold at an estate sale. The woman who purchased it quickly discovered its horrifying nature. Night after night, she was plagued by nightmares, her body racked with mysterious bruises. Strange, shadowy figures lurked in her peripheral vision, and eerie whispers filled the silence of her home. The box, it seemed, was never empty. Each time she opened it, the air grew colder, darker, alive with the presence of something sinister. Those who have come into contact with the box are not spared from its wrath. Owners have suffered violent fits of rage, debilitating illness, and even death. The box, it seems, demands its pound of flesh. Those foolish enough to keep it have reported feeling a suffocating weight on their souls. The overwhelming presence of the Dybbuk growing stronger with every passing day. The Dybbuk box is no mere artifact. It is a prison, a vessel of torment, holding a vengeful spirit that will never rest. The Devil's Chair is a chilling urban legend, one that has haunted the minds of many who dared to speak its name. In the desolate corners of abandoned cemeteries, hidden in plain sight, sits an eerie monument, an ominous, weathered chair, its stone surface cold and lifeless. But beware, this is no ordinary chair. It is cursed. Locals whisper that the chair is the resting place of a tormented soul, forever bound to its seat. Those who sit in it are doomed to be visited by dark, malevolent forces from beyond the grave. Some say the chair absorbs their life force, leaving them weak and hollow, while others claim they are plagued by nightmarish visions of the damned. Several have vanished without a trace after sitting in it, their bodies found twisted and unrecognizable, as if some unseen force had pulled their very essence into the chair itself. But the legend doesn't end there. It is said that on moonless nights, the chair becomes alive with a sinister presence, its cold stone heated by an unnatural energy. Those foolish enough to touch it report hearing faint whispers, the soft, agonizing screams of souls trapped in eternal torment. The Devil's Chair is is not just a relic, it's a warning. Never sit in it, never challenge it, for some curses are not meant to be broken. On the dark, mist-shrouded waters of the Platte River, there drifts a ship that should not exist, a ghostly vessel known as the Death Ship, first sighted in the mid-1800s. This eerie apparition has haunted the stretch between Alcova and Torrington, Wyoming, ever since. The ship, unnaturally gray and spectral, glides silently across the river's surface, its sails billowing in the windless air, as though propelled by something far more sinister than the breeze. But it's the crew that truly chills the soul. The sailors aboard the Death Ship are no men at all. They are phantoms, pale, hollow-eyed figures who stand motionless on deck, their faces twisted in eternal suffering. They move with an unnatural jerking motion, as though bound by some cruel force that will never allow them peace. No one has ever heard them speak, nor seen them react to the world around them. They simply drift, forever trapped on their cursed vessel. Locals speak of the ship's appearance as a death omen. Those who have witnessed it often report a sense of overwhelming dread, as if the ship is drawing them closer to the grave. Some claim that if you stare too long at the ghostly ship, it will come for you, its crew reaching out, cold hands grasping for your soul. Many who have ventured near the river never return, their fates lost to the Death Ship's eternal voyage. Once you see it, you may never leave the river alive. In the desolate, windswept landscape of Escalante, petrified forest, something ancient and malevolent stirs beneath the earth, a curse that punishes those who dare to disturb the long-dead remnants of a forgotten world. It is said that if you take even a single shard of petrified wood from the park, you will those who have taken the petrified wood, some with the best of intentions, have returned home to a life shattered by calamity, job losses, sickness, car accidents. These are the least of the horrors that befall those who steal from the ancient forest. Many have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread the moment they lay a hand on the wood, as if something unseen but terribly powerful is watching, waiting. As the legend goes, the spirits of the forest, the souls of those who once walked the earth, guard the petrified trees with an unrelenting fury. They have cursed the land, and anyone who dares to desecrate it will suffer until the stolen wood is returned. Those who ignore the warning find themselves spiraling into a nightmare of misfortune and despair. The air is thick with tension in Escalante, and if you ever find yourself there, beware. Touch the wood, and the curse will find you slowly, surely, and with no mercy. In the dead of night, under the oppressive weight of the full moon, a sinister pastime thrives in the quiet corners of rural farms. A cruel, twisted game known as cow tipping. The legend speaks of young thrill seekers who, driven by a strange, dark hunger, stalk the unwitting cows as they sleep soundly in the fields. The cows, standing on their hooves, are completely unaware of the danger creeping toward them. Silently, the tipper approaches, each step measured, each breath held. Then, with a single violent shove, the massive creature topples. The thud of the cow crashing to the earth echoes through the still night, a shocking sound that shatters the quiet like a gunshot. The cow, stunned and disoriented, struggles to rise, its heavy body too disoriented to defend itself. But it's not just the thrill of the topple that lingers. There's something deeply unsettling about the practice. Some say it awakens something ancient, a curse bound to the land. There are whispers in the shadows that those who partake in cow tipping may be marked, followed by a presence
Let us in. An inexplicable dread seeps into the air, an instinctive warning not to trust these children. Their presence feels wrong, alien. The unfortunate souls who've encountered them describe a rising terror, a sensation so primal it makes the hair on the back of their necks stand. These children will persistently ask to be let in, growing more insistent with each refusal, their voices slipping from gentle to unnervingly demanding. The true horror, however, lies in their eyes, pitch black orbs, empty of any warmth, life, or humanity. Once the blackness of their gaze is noticed, the fear becomes inescapable. Witnesses describe an overwhelming urge to shut the door, to flee, as if staring into those eyes could drain one's very soul. Some unlucky individuals have reported letting the children inside, only to be overcome by feelings of despair and dread. Their homes feel darker, colder, and they report experiencing nightmares and a constant feeling of being watched. Those who survive such encounters claim their lives are never the same, haunted by sickness, misfortune, and a sense of something unseen lurking just beyond their vision. Legend has it that the black-eyed children are not children at all, but creatures of something older and darker, a malevolent force cloaked in the innocence of youth. They cannot enter unless invited, yet they possess a strange hypnotic pull, as if they can bend their victims' wills to their own. Those who encounter the black-eyed children speak of them in hushed voices, sharing only vague details, fearful of summoning them back by remembering too clearly. And for those who live alone, beware of unexpected knocks on your door late at night. Because if you ever hear a soft, insistent voice asking to be let in, resist the urge to open the door. Turn off the lights, stay quiet, and pray they leave before you catch a glimpse of their hollow, black eyes staring through the darkness, waiting. In the fog-laden town of Exeter, Rhode Island, the terrifying tale of Mercy Brown still lingers, casting shadows over history. In the winter of 1892, young Mercy died from a brutal case of tuberculosis, then known as consumption. But even death couldn't silence her story. Not long after her burial, rumours spread like wildfire. Her family too was falling mysteriously ill, wasting away as though something sinister was siphoning the life from them. Driven by fear, townsfolk began to suspect that Mercy was no ordinary victim of disease. They whispered that she had returned from the grave as a vampire, a malevolent spirit consuming her family's life essence from beyond. Desperate to end the curse, they resolved to perform a grim ritual, exhuming her body from the frozen ground. When they opened her coffin, they found her shockingly well preserved, her skin pale but intact, her nails and hair seemingly grown, and her heart still containing fresh blood. say that Mercy's spirit did not rest after this ritual. Locals claim to see her figure drifting through the cemetery at dusk, her pale face visible in the moonlight, watching silently as if waiting for her next victim. Others report a suffocating chill in the air near her grave, an unnatural cold that wraps around them like icy hands. Even today, Mercy Brown's grave remains, a chilling reminder of superstition and desperation. Visitors say that if you stand near her grave at night, you can feel her presence, an overwhelming sense of sorrow and vengeance, a ghostly whisper from a past that refuses to be buried. Her legend endures as a reminder of how fear and folklore can reach out from the grave, grasping at the living with cold, relentless hands.